Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 53 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. Before I talk to you guys about my guest, Adam Meredith, I have something really cool to announce to you guys. I had told you guys a few months ago about the Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu ebook, which today is June 24th. If you missed getting it free, you missed out. I'm sorry, but I have something cool for you instead. And I also actually have a way for you to get it, just not free. But the idea is this. I told you guys that simplifying jiu-jitsu was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I've worked harder on simplifying jiu-jitsu than I have anything else in my life. Well, that was 100% true, but you guys didn't kind of know the full effect of what I was saying. What I was saying is the ebook, yes, this was something I worked really hard on and I put a lot into. But that wasn't what I had worked harder on than anything in my life. It was simplifyingjiu-jitsu.com. You guys know my opinion. I believe that a lot of people in jiu-jitsu, a lot of coaches, a lot of people that aren't coaches, they overcomplicate jiu-jitsu. I think that learning jiu-jitsu is not that hard. It can be simplified. Trying to master everything is incredibly hard. It's actually impossible. You can't be good at everything in jiu-jitsu, but we can be good at specific things. We can be good at simplifying things, and that's why I wanted to start simplifyingjiu-jitsu.com. That was really important to me, that I could provide an avenue for myself and other instructors from all around the world to be able to give you guys ways to train that are different, that are outside the box, and give you guys different training methods, things that aren't just the same and not just overcomplicated. And that was the big goal from simplifyingjiu-jitsu.com, which just went live today. And we have our first instructional up. It is an instructional from me. I've talked to you guys in the Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu ebook about the 5 essential positions of jiu-jitsu. Well, that kind of brought up a challenge. What if we could take the 5 essential positions of jiu-jitsu, where 90%, actually more than 90% of jiu-jitsu happens in, and master them using one move? All 5 positions using the exact same move. Is it possible? Yes, it is. So what we did was we created the Essentials of Jiu-Jitsu Kimura. And so we took the Kimura position. I hate to call it a submission because it is so much more than that. It is a guard pass. It is a controlling grip. It is a way to submit. It's a way to sweep. It's a way to take the back. There are so many things that you can do with Kimura. So we took the Kimura, and instead of making it a complex move, we made it even simpler by teaching you how to use it from every different position. We also use the method called Positional Stacking, which means the idea of it is I am going to do a Kimura from bottom half guard. And the more I do my Kimura from bottom half guard, the more I conceptually will start to understand how the Kimura grip works and how to control my opponent. So not only am I getting good at a Kimura from bottom half guard, but since my whole game is revolving around a Kimura, I'm also getting good at my Kimura from top north-south, because I'm learning how to sweep into that position and I'm learning how that control works. And so we use positional stacking in this instructional. I think you guys will really love it. I will put the link in the description. And again, it is simplifyingjiu-jitsu.com/Kimura is how you get to the actual page where you would be checking out the Kimura. But you guys can kind of look around the site. Right now, the site is very simple, but I have some really cool, much more exciting instructors than just myself that have already committed to filming instructionals with us. And as we get deeper, our production will go even higher. That is one of the 2 really important things that we feel like people aren't doing a lot is they're giving you one angle and they're on a cell phone. And we want to get away from that. We want to make the production value what you are getting when you are purchasing a jiu-jitsu course to just be high level. And the second thing, and the even more important thing, is we want to keep things simple. We want to keep things learnable. You're not going to be going to Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu to get 16 hours of content in one instructional that you will never watch, because that is illogical. You are going to go to Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu to get better at Jiu-Jitsu. And so that is our goal. That is our hope. And that is my announcement for the next 2 weeks. Also, 40% off on the purchase price of Essentials of Jiu-Jitsu Kimura. So be sure to check that out, guys. I would absolutely love it if you gave me some feedback on it too. But back to why you're listening. The episode with my good friend Adam Meredith. So this is really an interesting story. Adam was, I think it was the second podcast that I had ever been on. I couldn't find the other podcasts that I had been on before or like around the same time. And so I believe it was the second podcast I had been on. It could have been the first one. And it really gave me an idea of what podcasting was. I didn't even listen to podcasts at the time, so I had no real idea of what podcasting should be. And Adam is a super cool guy. He is from the same area that I am from, in St. Louis, and he has been around jiu-jitsu for a very long time. He was an MMA fighter. He wrestled in school, and we talk all about that. We get into it, and Adam has a really unique perspective on MMA, and that's something I really wanted to talk to him about, and that was kind of what our focus was. But he's just a guy I get along with really well, so we talk about a lot of other stuff too, on top of just MMA, and kind of, you know, brain damage and things like that, and what you can be doing for brain health. And he's really a really good guy. I think you guys will really enjoy hearing this episode. But also, don't be afraid. It does not make me angry if you guys cheat on me a little bit and you check out a different podcast. Don't be afraid to check out Outside Perspective. I believe I'm episode 81 on it. If you guys want to hear me sound very uncomfortable, because it was like my first time being on a podcast. I was very nervous. You guys can check that out. I don't know if you would pick it up. I think we're always harder on ourselves when we're listening to ourselves on a podcast, or we're watching ourselves on a video or something like that. But I definitely noticed that I was stressed. I was nervous. But it's still a great episode because he is a great podcast host. And I think you guys will enjoy that. But I also think you guys will enjoy the interview coming up right now. Adam, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, Josh. I appreciate you having me on, dude.
Yes, man. I'm really excited to get you on, because you may not know this. You probably don't, because I don't think I've ever told you. But one of the big podcasts that I looked at and kind of tried to model after when I was starting mine was your podcast, Outside Perspective.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so it was the second. I had been on a different podcast before. It was the second podcast I had ever been on, but it was the first ever one-on-one podcast that I had been on, and really enjoyed it. And if you guys have not heard that episode or seen that episode, I believe it's episode 81 of the Outside Perspective podcast. You are currently, as time of recording this, on episode like 161. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. I just released episode 161. I think I have like 3 or 4 more like in the chamber I'm gonna start releasing. With everything with COVID, dude, like I slowed down for a couple months because I like to do them all in person.
Mm-hmm.
So with the whole social distancing, I can't really get, in contact with a lot of people like I'd like to. So I'm building up a little bit of a pipeline so that way I can release on a regular schedule again. So I think I've done probably like 165, but yeah, I just released episode 161.
Man, do you have any that stand out to you? Like when you think about maybe not even your favorite from the perspective of like what somebody would think like, oh, this is the best podcast that he's done, but like a favorite for you. Has there ever been a favorite podcast for you or something that comes to mind?
Well, there's a couple. So like honestly, dude, like the most recent one that I just released, episode 161 with Tracy Taylor. I feel like that's probably like one of the most important podcasts like I've ever put out.
Mm-hmm.
Especially considering like everything going on with like George Floyd and everything going around like the country, right? I feel like there's a massive shift. And then
Yeah.
just him and I just kind of just sitting down and having a conversation, just sharing our experiences. I feel like that will like help a lot of people. And then another one was probably like Andy Frisella's was like a really big one, and just
Uh-huh.
for like just like a milestone, like in the whole podcasting thing. Because like for me, it was just like one of those moments to where like you feel super like yes, like it's like reassuring, like you feel like you are on the right path, you're doing the right thing, right? Like you can even like same thing like jujitsu, right? It's like you get that stripe or something. It's like yes, I'm on the path, man. Like yes, this is it.
It's cool to get those. Did Andy have like a really good shout out that he gave you on social media? Didn't he do that?
Yeah, dude, man. Like he literally said it was like the best like interview he's had. He pretty much was like, he's like the only two that come to mind are either Lewis Howes or Ed Milet. So, see, and then when he actually posted, he didn't even say Lewis Howes, he just said Ed Milet. So it's just like to even be put like in company with those guys, it was pretty like it was a cool feeling.
Did you kind of at this point, obviously we'll get to jujitsu eventually, but these are just things that I'm curious about. Did you in starting your podcast, what was your goal? Did you and do you feel like you're going towards that, or you've accomplished that and you have a new goal, or what was kind of your reason for starting?
Yeah, man. So it's funny, like my reason for starting podcasting is almost like the kind of the same reason I started like fighting. It's like it's something that like I had a passion for. I was already a an avid like podcast listener, and I had stopped fighting, which we can get to that later. But and I was like, man, like I'm not fighting. I'm doing a lot of jujitsu, but like I've always had this like drive to build something. I like to build things, and I was like, man, I feel like I can build this platform, and also simultaneously like I have this struggle with empathy. I've always felt like I've never really felt sorry for people,
Mm-hmm.
just because like I was a very young father. I was like 20 years old and I had my son, and I was going to school full time, and like I was fighting full time, and then even after that it's like working, kids, fighting, all full time. So I've always just been like just get it done kind of a person. But I was like, man, like this is an opportunity to like sit down and actually connect with people, because I for some reason I had this this whole epiphany where it's like, oh, people really do matter. It's not just about Adam, because dude, as a fighter, it's all about you, man. Like it's just you're training, you're eating, you're fighting. It's this very like egocentric pursuit. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, man, let me connect with people. Let me like build empathy, I feel. And then all at the same time, like build this platform, build this thing to where hopefully like the ultimate goal was to, to get this to a place to where it's like, I can live off of this and I can help change people's lives and like do all of those great things, but doing something I love.
Yeah, man. That's so a few things to just look at from that. I really think it's important to note, and I think not everybody talks about how selfish you do have to be as a fighter. In jujitsu,
Yeah.
people love to act like, oh yeah, I'm fighting for this or I'm fighting for that. The truth is, I'm spending hours and hours in my gym training when I could be making way more money doing a lot of other different things. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
could be providing for my family much differently, but it's it's that excitement that you chase. It's that love for the art and the sport that you chase. So as you started to come to the end of your MMA career, did you feel like you couldn't be selfish anymore? What was your thought process in that?
So it was like this, the selfish part kind of came a little bit like later. So initially it was just like, man, I I had a really good run. Like I had like an amazing year. And then like after like the biggest fight, I just fought on Bellator, and then like my first day of practice, I tore my labrum in my rotator cuff. So it was like a whole year of recovery. And then whenever I finally got back to fighting, like physically I felt fine. Like I was saying all the right words, like, you know, like telling everybody like how much I was, you know, how passionate I was about it. But like I just lost like that fire. Like I didn't really want to be in there fighting. And then that led me to start like really worrying about my brain. I was like, man, like fighting isn't one of those things that you can just half-heartedly do, because you're going to get hurt really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So fortunately, I've never been knocked out in a fight. I've definitely experienced some like flash knockouts in practice and different things. But like, it was just to a point where I was like, man, I don't really want to keep doing this. It's just hard on the body. I'm worried about my brain. I feel like I could take this same energy and passion and drive and focus it on like on an entrepreneurial pursuit and like build something for myself and take way less injuries and probably make way more money. So it
Mm-hmm.
was like, that was the transition. So once I stopped fighting, that's when jujitsu really like came to the forefront of like my daily life, because you do jujitsu for fighting. And like, I always knew whenever I started fighting, like I wanted to learn jujitsu and I wanted to get my black belt. Like that was always kind of like in my plan. So I knew that when I stopped fighting, I was going to do more jujitsu. Like some guys kind of go one way or the other. Like they'll do more striking or they'll go the jujitsu route. It's like, are you
Mm-hmm.
kind of a striker or a grappler? So I came from a wrestling background. So it's just a natural transition to keep doing jujitsu. So once I started doing jujitsu more, I got my kids into jujitsu, started helping teach their kids class. So I've been teaching kids class for, I guess going on 3 years now, a little over 3 years. I've been teaching under Tracy Taylor. And yeah, man, like that's kind of like that transition into like being less selfish, because now I'm like pouring my knowledge into people.
It's very hard to be selfish when you are teaching kids jujitsu classes.
Oh yeah.
It's very hard to be anything when you are teaching kids jujitsu classes, because they will just grind on you. They will wear you down.
Dude,
Do
patience.
you, man, it is. It is. Do
It
you
teaches
have
you.
anything that you feel like in teaching kids classes that you've picked up that helps, like kind of an aha moment for you that helps the kids kind of learn or progress?
So for me, like, I just feel like you have to have like a real understanding of what you're teaching, and just try to teach it as like simply as possible,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have the same, not all, some kids do. I'm sure you come across some kids that are like phenomenal athletes, but some kid, like most kids, right? Like they don't have that same situational or like body awareness on how to do things. So I've learned to be like very just like simple and direct with like how you trying to translate some of these more complex movements. And then also, dude, like just lowering expectations, like what I'm for real, man, like, because it's easy to kind of like get, I don't know, just you just focus too much on them being perfect. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, hey man, it's just like take people where they are, and just like some is like, let's just start somewhere and then we can just build from there. It's like you don't have to be at the end from the beginning, you know what I mean?
You don't, and that's so important with kids too. Is generally speaking, at most gyms, however big your kids program, maybe one or two has the potential to be really, really good at jujitsu, maybe.
Right.
But they won't reach that potential if you just beat them down as a kid. They're going to hate jujitsu.
Right.
Jujitsu is like broccoli. If you're forced to eat it when you're a kid, you're not going to eat it when you're an adult. And
Right.
so, is you start to like, you see that with parents, so many parents, they want their kids so bad to compete and win now.
Right.
And it translates to maybe their kid does compete and win now, but no matter what, there's going to be a point where winning becomes much more important than learning jujitsu, and they lose. And whether consciously or unconsciously, the parent is mad at the kid. Like,
Right.
yeah, you didn't train hard enough. You weren't doing enough push-ups when everybody in class was training, and so it puts this negative taste. It really, I would say, I started when I was 14, and of the kids that I competed with against from 14 to 18, I only know of one that is still training jujitsu.
Really.
And yeah, and that was at 14 too. Like I have kids that are 7, like
Yeah.
it's crazy to think about, like kids, they fall off so easily. It's way too easy to fall off of jiu-jitsu.
They really, really do. Like, I kind of feel like my daughter will do that. Like, she's not going to, because she doesn't absolutely love jujitsu. But like, I put her in it, and like, I'm not too hard on her, but I just want her to be in the environment, because it's like, this could save your life one day.
Hmm.
And I understand it maybe not be like, you may not 100% love doing this, but us doing this, a couple times a week, one day could save your life. So it's like, even if it's just like learning to shrimp, or just having some sort of like movement with like a hip toss or something, like she's gonna
Hmm.
get something out of it to save her life. So, but yeah, man, those parents who or they want them to be world champions. It's like, hey, man, we're just in here trying to teach some kids some things that are gonna help them throughout life.
That's so true, man. That's super important. Okay, so going back a little bit to, we talked about kind of finishing your MMA career as you start. How was that decision to kind of actually end your career, like to actually say like I'm not gonna fight anymore?
Oh, it was easy. I lost. I'm Well, here's the thing, man. Like, I had a fantastic, recovery. I felt stronger than ever. I felt better than ever. Like, weight cut went amazing for my last two fights. But then you get into a fight, and it's just like a jujitsu match. Like, you get into a hard position where now you're facing adversity, and it's like, well, are you going to push through? You know what I mean? Or are you going to like quit? You know what I mean? And like, unfortunately, when we do jujitsu, we can just tap if you want to quit. But like in MMA, like, your ego's probably not gonna let you tap, but like, so I just got like, I got pounded out one time. Guy took my back, flattened me out, TKO. And it's like, I was perfectly fine. He didn't injure me. Actually, I was winning that fight. And then and then I lost. And I was like, man, fuck. All right, well, let me do this again. Oh, can I cuss on this? I'm
You
sorry.
can say whatever you want, man.
And then the next fight, a guy put me in like a lazy triangle, and I did actually tap to that, and I could have beat that guy any day of the week with. And I was just like, man, like, why are you even going in there? Like, because when things hit the fan and you're in a difficult decision, if you're not going to push through, then what's the point? You know what I mean? And then again, just going to my brain, I was just like, oh, like, this just isn't for me. I didn't get any enjoyment out of being in there. Like, if I win, and this is actually kind of a plague today, it's like, if I win, I expect to win, and then if
Hmm.
I lose, I'm super bummed. So I
Yeah.
don't get the same enjoyment out of winning.
Man, I think that's something that a lot of people deal with in martial arts, especially.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of it has to do with you. Your creativity makes you good, right? Your creativity, it figures out ways for you to train and methods for you to get better and moves for you to do, and it gets you good to where you get to that point where you're expecting to win, and so you don't get that same enjoyment out of winning, but you forget that the reason you were having fun was because you were being creative, right?
right.
And it puts you in a box where you can no longer be creative. You have to be, no, you have to do it this way, and you have to do it perfect because you made a knee cut instructional, and so you better be knee cutting everybody. You can't do any other type of guard pass, right?
All you can
And
do, Josh.
yeah, yeah. And so it's like it can be very tough to experience success because it's so easy to put pressure on yourself and say like, well, now I have to just experience the success all the time, or then I'm a failure.
Yeah,
And so it can be such an odd thing for I'm sure any sport. I'm sure any sport once you get good at it.
yeah.
Luckily for me, I've never been good at any other sport, so I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure any sport you run into that success can either be really good or you can make
Yeah.
it negative.
Yeah, man. I feel like anybody with like a high like competitive drive, or just like, just high performers in general, whether it's like business or anything, it's just like the win is just the thing, right? And that's something I really had to work on, like actually celebrating the wins is, and actually like appreciating them. And whether it's like a small win in life or like a big win on, in front of people, competing. So it's like actually taking the time to appreciate those, and not always just moving on to what's next. So I have a 24-hour rule where I'll at least give myself 24 hours to like celebrate and actually acknowledge the win. And then it's on to the next thing.
Uh-huh. I love that. I think that's so important though. I was listening to, I think Kevin Hart has been on a bunch of different podcasts lately because he's got a book that he's coming out with. But he was on, I think it was Tim Ferriss, and
Okay.
and Tim said, "Hey, I've heard that you are like one of the only highly successful people that really enjoys the success." And he said, "Yeah, he said, I just don't forget where I came from." He said, "I grew up poor, and I know that all this could just be gone tomorrow." He
Yeah.
said, "I know I could be right back there tomorrow, and it wouldn't even be that crazy." And he says, "So I just make sure that I'm enjoying it today while I have it." And it's as you keep trying to do more, it can be very hard to just sit back and enjoy what you have accomplished. It's finding that balance. I love the 24-hour rule. That makes a lot of sense to me. Of like, okay, you get to be happy, but then we have to go back to grinding and working and
Right.
doing again.
Yeah, you can't just live there.
You can't. So you had mentioned that you had this shoulder injury. So it was a torn labrum and rotator cuff.
Right. Yep.
And so was it your dominant hand or non-dominant?
It was, so it's kind of a weird question. So it was my right shoulder. I'm left-handed, like whenever I eat and use utensils, but all my sports are done right-handed. So I'm fairly ambidextrous. So if like for sports and stuff, it was my dominant hand.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so when that happened, was there thought to retire then?
No, because like, man, I felt so close to getting signed to Bellator at that time. I had just went on like a 4-fight win streak. Like I was finishing everybody. I had just fought on like Bellator's undercard when they came here to St. Louis, and had a pretty quick submission within a couple minutes. And like everything was just going really well. So I just felt that like I was just like on that cusp of like getting signed to a larger promotion, so I could start getting bigger checks. But for whatever reason, man, it was just like once I actually did get in there, I didn't want it the same.
So coming off of an MMA career, would you, especially for like, for the young people that may listen, would you recommend or I guess disagree with going into MMA as uh, I guess as a profession or as something to chase? Are you for it or are you against it?
Well, man, I'm not gonna discourage anybody for kind of doing their thing. I mean, because I have a young fighter that I help train. His name's Jackson Henson, and like that kid's a savage. So it's like, man, if you're gonna do it, then do it. But it's not something that I would really want maybe for my kids. I don't even let my son play football because
Hmm.
like I'm not big on the brain injuries. But on that same note, my son does jujitsu, and I've been teaching him how to box just because I feel like it's a good skill to have, to be able to, to protect yourself in life. So it's like I probably wouldn't recommend it, but like if you're gonna do it, then make sure you're doing it right. You know what I'm saying?
That's probably really good advice. If you're gonna, it's not something that you can do. MMA is not a hobby. It is.
No.
Jiu-Jitsu can be a hobby, right? We can train jiu-jitsu even once a week, and you're not gonna have any negative repercussions from that, most likely, right?
Right.
But with MMA, if you are not serious about it, and that's something that stresses me out, is like I don't have any type of striking program at my gym, and that is by design. That is not because
Right.
it's not because I don't think that it's useful or something that people should have, but in all honesty, I just don't want to make it easy for my jujitsu guys to fight MMA. I just don't
Yeah.
want that to be
I
one
wouldn't
of
either.
those. Yeah, it's one of those things that I've cornered too many guys, um, and just watched them, even in fights that they win, just get so beat up and be
Oh
so
man.
messed up.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been in a room with somebody after a knockout, and you still want to fight MMA, that's when I think you can make that decision. But until
Yeah.
you've seen somebody deal with that, where they're like their brain keeps resetting and they keep asking you the same questions over and over, they don't know where they're at. It's one of the more stressful and sad things that I've like ever seen.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's
and
hard to see, man, for
it
sure.
is. It is. So, kind of on that note, I really, one of the big things I wanted to bring up with you is kind of brain injuries and brain health? Because I know you're somebody that is very, very studied on it. So something that's very important to you. And so if you were, kind of looking at that, and I wanted to ask this first, do you think that jujitsu is fine for brain health?
Dude, so I think what we've learned almost daily life can just be hard on the brain, and just like any sport, dude. Like even if you're doing like motocross, they're showing cases of TBI and like and NASCAR drivers and stuff just from the sheer force that they're always under. So it's just like even in jujitsu, sometimes we get hit in the head. Like you catch an elbow, you'll catch a heel. You know what I mean? Like that can still be concussive here and there. I don't think it's as hard, on the brain
Mhm.
by any stretch of the imagination, because you're not taking those constant repetitive shots like if you were boxing or training for MMA or something. But it's just a matter of taking care of yourself, and not going too crazy. I don't think we have the same amount of injuries. I think maybe more so if you're like a competitive jujitsu guy, because
Mhm.
you're probably in there, head fighting a little bit more, banging on your wrestling. You know what I mean? So you can have some with that. But I do think all in all, jujitsu is definitely a whole lot safer. It's a lot easier on the body. There's multiple ways to train it. Like I say this all the time. Like I'm gonna do jujitsu until I die. Right? I can't train like a competitor until I die, but I can still always get some movement in and do some stuff. So it's just like it's for sure a whole lot easier on the brain than some other sports, but any sport can be hard on the brain.
That makes sense. So as you started to look at brain health, what are some of like kind of the big things that you think that people, maybe some people do or maybe they should be doing,
Yeah.
for brain health?
Dude, number one thing is and this is for all health, brain health, everything, sleep. Like get good quality sleep. It's not about like how much you're getting, it's about the quality of what sleep that you're getting. Like create like a sleep sanctuary, man. All like all of our gains, whether it's learning, whether it's losing fat, whether it's building muscle, whether it's your brain repairing itself, that's all happening during sleep. So getting like quality restful sleep, like in a dark environment, a cooler environment, um, not being so like staying, limiting your screen time up until going to bed. Like all these things will help you get like a more restful night's sleep, so you'll get better recovery, and that is going to help immensely with your brain health.
Do you take anything for sleep?
I don't take anything for sleep. Some people will use melatonin. I wouldn't recommend like relying on melatonin 100%. Maybe if you are having some issues or like you're traveling and you want to maybe, get to sleep faster, but I wouldn't like typically recommend, and I'm not a doctor or anything, but like, staying, doing that on a regular basis, because it'll downregulate your body's own production of natural melatonin.
Hmm.
So, and for the folks listening, melatonin, like that's our sleep hormone. What happens is we, when nighttime hits and everything starts winding down, our cortisol levels are supposed to go down and our melatonin is supposed to go up. Cortisol is that hormone that like wakes you up, helps with that fight or flight. Um, so whenever you are like up late at night and you're on the screens and you're getting all that light exposure, what happens is your cortisol stays up and it suppresses your melatonin, and it makes it harder to fall asleep. And I think like for like every hour, I think after dark that you're on like a device or you're getting blue light, even when you do go to sleep, your cortisol production still remains high for like 30 minutes, even past going to sleep. So you can be unconscious, but not getting restful sleep. So I don't really recommend doing the melatonin unless you're like maybe trying to get back into a sleep cycle, but to
Hmm.
rely on that would kind of be counterproductive over time.
Hmm. And so, I believe melatonin is produced or is built throughout the day, right? I think melatonin is built through the day, and then you start absorbing it um, when your body starts to recognize that, hey, it's nighttime, we need to go to bed, but we don't recognize it because we have so many artificial lights. So when it
Yeah.
would be pitch black, in my house, it's bright. You know what I mean? Because I have my lights
Yeah,
on and my
like
TV on.
our body feeds off the environment and these natural cues. And whenever we have all these like unnatural like fluorescent lights, or like we're watching TV or we're on our phone and we're getting that blue light, like as far as your body is concerned, it's like, oh, it's daytime. Like that's what's going on. So it doesn't kickstart your, your melatonin like it should, and then it keeps your cortisol way up, and it just keeps you awake.
So I ask you if you take anything for sleep. Do you do anything for sleep, or don't do anything for sleep?
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't take anything for sleep, but I just try to keep a good routine. And like, I'm not always on it, but at the very least, I try to make sure I'm not getting any screen time, at least 30 minutes before bed. Kind of shut it down. I feel like one of the best things people can do is just kind of create like a nighttime routine.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, it's usually like, like showering and brushing my teeth and doing all that stuff. And just taking my time, that way I'm not getting the blue light. And then I'm kind of winding down. I take a really hot shower. That kind of helps me fall asleep. And then that's pretty much it as far as like a nighttime routine. Now, I do always make sure that like I have a sleep sanctuary. Like I'm super big on that. Like there's blackout curtains in there, so like there's no lights coming in. We actually have a noise machine to kind of help with the white noise. Like I have a fan on, so that way there's like air circulation. Turn down the temperature to like 68, just to make sure that I'm gonna get like the best sleep ever.
So your nightly routine is almost exactly the same as mine to a T, except for one big opposite that I do from you is I take a cold shower before bed.
Oh, I usually do those in the morning.
See,
I do cold in the morning.
everybody always says that. I don't like to take them throughout the day or anything like that. I don't like to take them at night, but I notice that when I don't sleep, or when I can't fall asleep consistently, it's always the same thing. It's always because I feel hot still. And so after training, especially, you train at night, you get home, and you still, especially now it's summer, you still feel so warm all the time. And so that is like, I will take my cold shower, and it's probably 5 minutes, and it's pure hell. It's absolutely
Yeah.
horrible. And then fall right asleep. That's one of my favorite ways to get sleep.
How late are you training?
So I get done training at 7. So not even that late, but I do go to bed pretty early. So
Okay.
yeah,
There's not
so
a lot of time in between there.
no, there's probably, so I get done at 7, and latest I probably stay up as 10. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't like to do it too late. Do you notice if you train hard that it's hard to fall asleep?
Yeah, and that's what I was asking. Like when you train late at night, it can affect your sleep. So
Mm-hmm.
that would make sense, I think, why you probably get more benefit out of that cold shower. And I've
Mm-hmm.
heard that before. Other people like have taken cold showers before bed, and they've gotten some really good results from that. And I've actually never tried it because I was just like, oh, it'd be so miserable. I already do it in the morning. I might play with it to see if it does help me sleep better at night. But I have heard that before. I wonder if it's because you do train later at night.
It's probably what it is, because I really don't think I do it. I don't feel like the need to do it on nights that I don't train, which, I mean, there aren't a ton of nights that I don't train, but like Saturdays we train during the day instead of at night. And so I
Yeah.
don't feel like the need, and that's one of the easiest nights for me to fall asleep
Wow.
is like on Saturdays. I think your body is just still in fight mode, after training really hard.
Yeah,
And
it needs some time.
yeah, it does. And so that's what helps me, but I won't say that like I should have my wife on to just talk about how she can just fall asleep like in the middle of anything, just immediately. No worry about it. Like, hey, we're going to go to bed. You hit the light and she's out, like
Yeah.
how is that possible? How do you do that?
Oh, I do that. My girlfriend dude, my girlfriend will be like, I'll say something and she'll be in the middle of her sentence and then I'll be asleep. I fall asleep so fast, bro.
That's
So fast.
That is awesome. So Kyle is always it's kind of like a fun thing that you're supposed to do anytime you're traveling with Kyle. It's Kyle will fall asleep on every road trip and every plane flight. And so you're supposed to take a picture because he always has his mouth open. And so he always Does
Ah,
that, yep, fall asleep with the mouth open, and it's always great. So there are tons of pictures on Facebook that he's just tagged in of
that's fun.
him, yeah, with his mouth wide open
That's awesome.
asleep. Uh, so kind of moving from the sleep note, how do you like teaching? You've been teaching jujitsu. How it's been? You said you've been teaching kids for 3 years. How long have you taught
Um,
like adults?
dude, so adults I've been teaching for less than that. Probably like I'd say like 6 months I've been teaching adults, maybe a year. And so the time runs together because so I started with the kids class and then like I would fill in for adults.
Uh-huh.
But then I've just been teaching more consistently with the adults, probably in the last, I'd say like 6 months or so. And I'm trying to do more of the adults and less of the kids.
Uh-huh.
I love the kids, but I love teaching the adults more.
I am of the belief, and right now I'm not able to do this. I teach both my kids and my adults, but I'm of the belief that kids should have their own coach. And the reason I think that is because jujitsu is different when you weigh 40 pounds compared to you when you weigh 180 pounds.
Oh
And
yeah.
so like if you watch a kids tournament, there is a million times more closed guard than there is it with adults. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I'm big on kind of like, really focusing on one over the other. So um, what have you noticed, or have you noticed anything with teaching adults, just about ways to teach and ways to communicate to them?
So, honestly, man, fortunately, so teaching kids has made my jujitsu like a million times better. And I feel like I basically just get like I have like 3 technique classes a week with Tracy Taylor, who's like an amazing like teacher and black belt. And a lot of what I've noticed having like taught those guys and like have gotten better is that the kids and the adults aren't really that much different. Unfortunately, Tracy teaches the kids and the adults pretty much the exact same. So I actually teach them the same. I can just use more foul language with the adults.
That is true. That gets frowned upon from parents,
Yeah, they don't like when you drop F bombs in the middle of kids class.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's always bad when the kids do it though. You're like,
uh,
hey, you can't say that, man. Shh.
you learn that here, buddy.
I think that is important, is like just keeping things really simple. So many people they want to add extra steps to things almost in an effort to show that they know more, right?
Yeah.
Like look how hard this is to do, that what I'm teaching you. But then I don't teach you anything because you're not actually learning it, because it is too hard to do. You
Right.
know?
Yeah, man. Simplicity goes a long way. And then I've kind of found my own kind of like structure that I like to teach with classes. I found that, some instructors will and I don't know if this is just like the seminar style thing where it's just like you just and I've been in classes where I've learned like 3, 4, and 5 moves in a class, and it's like maybe I retain one of those. I hope I do. So it's like now, man, it's just like as simple as possible, and it's like we're just going to do one move today, like maybe 2, but probably just one. And it's just like we're going to work for this for the next like I warm up, and then we'll drill for like the next, I don't know, like 30, 40 minutes. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes, we'll do some live, most likely incorporating what we just learned. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I try not to like make it like too much information. And I try to make sure that we're just getting it, like, you're going to learn it. Like we're going to drill it, and then we're going to use it. So that way we're all these different like stimuluses are going to help you actually retain that information.
Mm-hmm. Man, that is so important. Is like it, you go to seminars. It's so common. You go to seminars and you're like, man, I don't even remember what that guy taught. That we went over a million things, right?
Dude, it's like,
And
oh, I love that. And then you can't remember it.
mhm. And then it actually, not only do you not remember it, but it actually becomes a negative, because it's discouraging that, man, that was such good stuff, but I can't
Yeah.
comprehend it.
Yeah.
And so with what I do at my school, and I have the ability to do this because I, teach most of the classes and I'm the head coach. So I run all the classes, but
Yeah.
we will focus on one position for an entire month. And so we will stay and we will work 2 weeks of the usually it's top and bottom of a position, but 2 weeks of the top, 2 weeks of the bottom. And each week we only do a set of 3 moves at the most. And usually the 3 moves, they cover one concept, and we try to incorporate that concept in all 3 moves. And we positional spar that position just an insane amount, basically trying to just look at jiu-jitsu from just a much simpler method and not say, hey, it's not, obviously having techniques is really important. That's something that everybody does, but like we all have access to basically every technique available. If you spend a little money on whatever, website, or you just look on YouTube, there is so much access to techniques. It's not lack of techniques that keeps people from being good at jiu-jitsu. It's lack of training method, and
100%.
so you see that so often for people is like, I had Kenny Florian on, and we talked about this, especially. It was like, you see so many coaches and they just, or not, I wouldn't even say coaches like they run a gym, but people teaching, and they really want to impress. And so they want to show cool stuff that's very hard. And then it's like, dude, nobody does that. Nobody's going to do that.
No, dude. Like, yeah, dude, the basics win, right? It's all about the foundations.
It's
like, it's not sexy. It's not exciting. Dude, it's like you'll teach a move, and then like your students will probably drill it, and then they'll stop and they'll just look at you. And they're like, what's next? I'm like, well, did you do that 10,000 times? Like, keep going. Like, keep drilling, dude. Like, what do you mean what's next? Like, the foundations always win.
It's so important. I mean, you just, in every, not just pure jiu-jitsu, but you think of like one of probably, in my mind, one of the most iconic jiu-jitsu transitions in MMA was when Nate submitted Connor, and Connor got an underhook on like the body side from side control and tried to spin out, and Nate re-underhooked and beat him on it. It was simple. It was to some people, it looked like, man, that was so close, or like he almost got out. But to people that really understand the position, like he could have literally sat in that position for days and tried to get out that way. He would have never gotten out because he lost that battle. And it was that simplicity of jiu-jitsu that shined there. Obviously, knocking him out almost helped, but that doesn't hurt. But it really did. That simplicity is really kind of the beauty of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, dude. I mean, a lot of jiu-jitsu is like, it's like learning the concepts. It's like, man, if you can learn the concept of a triangle, like you can figure out how to put that triangle on from almost any position. You know what I mean? It's like you have to learn these concepts, and then you can apply them to these other areas. You know what I mean? It's like I've been teaching 6 a.m. jiu-jitsu Monday through Friday for going on a month now. And it's just like, even before then, we were kind of doing some underground stuff. I was with the guys. And but it's like I kind of have like this solid foundation of guys I've been training for the past couple months. And it's just like, man, I just kind of took them back to square one, dude. I'm like, look, dude, we're going to learn how to shrimp. Like, I'm going to teach you to start like controlling all of these positions. Like you hear position over submission, right? It's like, I'm going to teach you how to control these positions. And then just now, almost, after 2 months of training, I just started teaching them different submissions. It's like I made sure conceptually they understood all of these different positions and how to control them. Because then from there, man, then you can really build. That's what white belts and blue belts don't understand. Like, they're always trying to get to that submission, or they get like, it's like almost like, like you hear the term like trigger happy with the gun, right? Like they're ready for that submission, or they'll get to side mount. They're ready to get that full mount. Like they won't own the position. They won't just like kind of slow down. Like, once you start getting higher, brown and black belt, it's like those guys tear you up because they own the position. They make you quit, and then whatever submission appears, they'll just, they take it. Like they're not forcing anything. They're just like owning that position to the fullest. And that messes people mentally up more than anything.
I've trained with brown and black belts that don't do that. I've trained with brown and black belts that they are brown and black belts in certain positions, and then especially in bad positions. That's something I always that's always pretty common when I feel like I'm going with somebody that's a brown and black belt from somewhere else is when put in side control, when their back is taken, you just like instantly submit them. And like, dude, there's so many more layers to jiu-jitsu, but there aren't to yours. You know, like it shouldn't be a death sentence if your guard gets past. You should be able to escape and defend.
Yeah.
And it's very bizarre. You just see, I think a lot of the reason that happens to people that are better, you know, at brown and black belt is to get good at those two things. One of two things would have to happen. One, you would either have to let somebody pass your guard, or two, you would have to positional spar it. And people are so afraid of getting submitted that they're like, well, I don't want people starting on my back. You know, like,
take that ego out of it.
Well, yeah, and if you're afraid of getting submitted, you better have people starting on your back all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, or you're going to get submitted a ton.
Dude, they used to talk about how Rickson Gracie would let people take his back and fully get a rear naked choke and then get out.
It's so important to do that kind of stuff, to do that kind of training. It's like you learn to start defending leg locks by getting leg locked a bunch. You know what I mean? It's like nobody starts like that. I think a lot of people go on like leg lock journeys, and nobody starts their leg lock journey with the idea of like, well, I'll never get leg locked. And then, you know what I mean? Like you have to get leg locked in order to get good at it. Yeah. And so that was what brown belt was for me, actually, was like my entire brown belt. I lost one match that wasn't to a leg lock. Every other match I lost was to a leg lock. And I was like, man, I really, that's not good. I need to fix this.
Dude, I went down to Austin, Texas, and I was pretty fortunate. I got invited to the On It Open when they were still doing it. And I went against this dude, William Tackett.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, dude.
He's fighting this weekend on
Fight to Win. Is it Fight to Win?
No, it's not Fight to Win.
He's their brown belt champ.
Yeah, I think he fought on Fight to Win not long, like
last weekend.
Yeah, I was gonna say like last weekend. I think he's fighting. So I just released it. Jake Watson, who's in the same division as him. It's an 8-man division. It is stacked. It is Third Coast Grappling is what it's called. It's in Texas.
Third Coast. Okay. Yeah. And dude, kid's a stud, man. Like that whole tournament was a stud, dude. In the finals, it was him. And I think his name's Kyle Chambers, I believe, out of Oceanside, 10th Planet Oceanside.
I've heard that name, yeah.
He was a brown belt at the time. But, dude, like, this was a no-gi tournament, and I went down there, and it completely opened my eyes to the world of leg locks. And, like, in the Midwest, or especially here in St. Louis, we don't have a strong no-gi culture or a strong like leg lock culture. Mm-hmm. But if you go to both coasts and even Texas, that's predominantly what they do. You know what I mean? They do a ton of no-gi and a ton of leg locks. And like we're like the complete inverse of that here in the Midwest. It completely opened my eyes to how important it is to understand that game.
Have you ever come and trained at my gym?
No.
So you should come sometime, man. When we're not, huh?
I need to come out there and train with you guys for sure.
You should. You would really like it because and it's not from me. It's not coming from the top. It just probably 3 years ago, one of my blue belts at the time was like, man, I really want to get into leg locks. And then what happens is he starts submitting everybody with them. And so everybody starts doing them. One of the guy who just got his black belt, but he was a brown belt at the time. I think he might have been even a purple belt when he started messing with him. And then like everybody started getting into him. So that is, I always look at it at my gym, one place that we're not missing. They have just so many guys that are really, really deep into the leg lock game.
Important. Yeah, dude. It's such an important game to understand, man. It's like, it's one of those scary things too, right? Because you really can, if you're doing heel hooks anyway, you can really mess somebody up, dude. Mm-hmm. And when you kind of pair that with like the ego of a young jiu-jitsu practitioner, you're kind of almost asking for like an injury. So like I'm always like a little hesitant, but it's just like it's one of those things like you just got to know how to do it.
You do, and so I think it's important too. It's an important note. It's something that works for me really well is you have training partners you trust.
100%.
And so one of my guys and one of my purple belts and I were rolling and I had him in a heel hook, and he fought it a little bit long, and then he tapped, and he right after goes, "Hey, I'm sorry I fought that long." He said, he's like, "I know you were being nice, but me being nice is what allows him to fight it and actually get a good understanding of the
Yeah.
position. Me not just being like, I'm going to rip this, because if I lose it, hey, I lose it. Maybe I didn't have a good enough control, right?"
Right. Right. And the control is the important part, right? Like I'm less worried about whenever I first started training leg locks, like I think I was experienced enough to understand like, hey, I really want to understand how to control this position. So I would
Mhm.
enter leg locks with never the intention of finishing them, only to see if I could shut you down so you can't move anymore. Like you can't get out of this. I want to completely control this position. I think if we can get people kind of starting from there, then it's a good place to start like training leg locks because you're not going to hurt anybody. Then I really pride myself on being like the safest person in my gym to roll with.
I that's good too. I had never injured anybody in rolling. Have you ever met Junior Silva,
Mhm.
who trains with us? So
Yeah.
I never injured anybody in my life training, and I was going with him, and I knee cut him and tore his groin. This is like
Ooh.
6 months ago or something. And now I'm labeled as the worst training partner ever, and they just dog me for doing it. And I like,
Letter, buddy. You got to wear it.
yeah, I like, dude, it was one time, like maybe his groin was just weak, you know?
Maybe it was. Maybe you should take some collagen or something. Strengthen up those joints, bro.
Okay, so I had two things that I wanted to ask you about that we talked about on your podcast, and I was curious about where you're at with them. Or the first one being pour over coffee. Have you tried it, and if so, are you into it?
I have tried it. It is good. You're gonna be mad at me though. I still do the French press, bro. I
You
still do
still do the French press?
the French press, man. I love it. I do like it. But I do honestly, do my jam as of late has been the Nitro cold brew. I'm kind of thinking
Oh
about getting
yeah.
a little machine for that or something because
What
that's amazing.
what kind of machine do you
Well,
have to
you know how
use
like
for that?
you can add CO2. It's just like a little keg machine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, they
Man,
have them specifically for coffee now. Like you actually like you brew your own coffee, and then they have these little CO2 cartridges, and then you like you put it all in the machine, and then you got your own little nitro brew on tap, bro.
have you ever had coffee soda?
No.
Okay, so what it is, I somebody made it on YouTube. It would probably been right when the quarantine started because they were at their house when they're making it. Um, and it is, I think she used tonic water, but I hate tonic water, so I use club soda.
Okay.
And I use club soda and then put like stevia in it. And she did that, and then a really, really strong cold brew, because usually a lot of times when you make cold brew, you dilute it with
Mhm.
water. So instead, you're diluting it with, you're diluting it with club soda or something like
Right.
that. And then you squeeze like a slice of lime into it.
Mm.
And so you have, it's like a sour, a little bit, a slightly sour, slightly sweet coffee. It is so good.
We'll have to
If
try that.
if you like the nitro cold brew, I really think, and don't get me wrong, I told you that pour over was great, and you said you hate that. So I don't know, maybe
I don't
maybe you
hate
won't
it.
like
It's
it.
good. So here, I had my brother make it for me. I'm like, dude, I'm told I need to have this, and he does it. He's like, yeah, dude, it's good. It was good, man. It was smooth. Flavors were great. I'm just, maybe I'm just a creature of habit. Now, what I have tried pretty recently is the kids are calling it whipped coffee, but I found out the real name is called Dalgona coffee.
So is that the instant coffee where
Yeah,
you?
dude. So it's I don't do it all the time. I tried it. It's pretty good. It's okay. My girlfriend absolutely loves it, so I make it for her most mornings. I'm trying to help her kick her Starbucks, habit. But yeah, dude, it's the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of instant coffee, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then 2 tablespoons of water. Of like boiling hot water so that we can dilute it all, and then you like whip it. Now I cut the sugar in half to 1 tablespoon for her, and that's what I would do for me too. But just whip it, and then you pour it over just like almond milk or something, like iced
Mhm.
almond milk, and on top. That was pretty good. but she absolutely loves it. I still just stick to the regular.
So it's actually the what makes it whipped is the instant coffee. So you can replace the sugar with any other sweetener. And so if you do monk fruit with it, it is sweet, but it's not. There's no sugar in it. And
Really?
so yeah, and so my aunt made that for us a few weeks ago, and she's like, "Oh, you got to try it." And she used monk fruit with it, and
Mm,
it was great, man. It
check it
really
out.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good. Um, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, the important one, is are you still wearing a fanny pack?
Every day, bro.
Every day.
Where's my fanny pack? I think I put. Oh, it's upstairs. It's not on me right now. Dude, every day. I'm about that life.
do
I'm
you
gonna
do
do
you,
that till I die too.
do you have multiple fanny packs?
I do. So but I have my everyday fanny pack, which I actually probably need to replace. It's falling apart. But then I got like a nicer leather one, just in case I need to go to like a nice occasion.
Yeah, in case you go
Um,
to a wedding. Yeah.
yeah, dude, you never know, man. You gotta look fresh at the wedding for sure. So, but yeah, man, I'm all about the fanny pack life, bro.
I'm a big proponent, man. I'm a big proponent.
Dude, I don't like things in my pockets.
Do you get a hard time for wearing a fanny pack?
Um, I think it's come to be expected. And I feel like when people see me with the fanny pack, they're like, that's a guy who's comfortable with himself. He knows what he's doing. And in fact, if you hang out with me enough, you're probably going to wear a fanny pack too. I've converted a handful of people for sure.
So I don't have one at my house, but I actually have uh my gym is Head Nod HQ. I have Head Nod HQ fanny packs.
Oh,
And
nice.
they're actually, I designed them myself. They're actually really freaking good looking. They're sharp, but I was able to convert a few of my students into having them. And the rule is at the gym, you are allowed to make fun of me as much as you want for me wearing a fanny pack. But when we're at a tournament and you have a headache, don't ask for Advil because I know I'm the only guy that's got it. And you can't have it.
Yeah, man. Don't talk trash and then want to use it. You know what I'm saying? It's funny you say that because I've been working on this project for a little bit where like I'm designing these fanny packs for the whole Jiu-Jitsu community. We're gonna turn the whole Jiu-Jitsu world into fanny pack wearing fools.
Oh my gosh, I like them. Can you talk any more about it? Can you give us any inside?
Oh man, I really would. Maybe I'll share with you offline.
Okay, okay,
What I
okay.
got going on, but
I'm
I'm
I
super.
am
This is
pumped.
gonna be a revolutionary fanny pack like nobody has ever seen. They're not ready for it.
Dude,
Just that's all I can say.
if I had a smartwatch, it would be like beeping saying my heart rate is dangerously high right now because I love fanny packs and I drink way too much coffee, but I'm pumped about the fanny pack idea. I love it, man. So at the end of this show, we always like to finish with the same question. Okay. So
Okay.
here it is. I am at an Adam Meredith seminar. You just dropped some awesome jujitsu knowledge on us. I am a blue belt. And I raise my hand, during the question and answer, like, oh yeah, hey, fanny pack guy, what do you want to know? And I say, Adam, I suck at jujitsu. How do I suck less at jujitsu?
How do you suck less at jujitsu? Man, I think the way to suck less at jujitsu is to take your ego out of the picture and just show up. Because if you do those two things, you will guaranteed get better. Maybe not overnight, but you will get better.
That is, dude, that's probably like the biggest answer that we get is like, you, you have to show up. You gotta be there. And, man, that's so common. It's very common for people to not show up. It's very common for people to quit and then come back and quit and then come back. My friend had a quote that he shared, that he made and shared on Instagram. And it is that a white belt is a blue belt who just hasn't quit yet. And I think that is, we always make those jokes about how blue belts quit all the time. I think that is, it kind of comes from actuality. People do
all the
quit
time, dude.
jujitsu, man.
They get that blue. They're all gun ho in the beginning, and then they get that blue belt. They're like, oh, I feel good because that purple belt's a whole lot further away now.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And I really think that so often the reason that people quit jujitsu is because jujitsu is too useful for things. So if I come in to lose weight for jujitsu, by blue belt, I've probably lost the weight that I want to lose. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Or if I come in to learn self-defense, by blue belt, I probably would be able to handle myself in a self-defense situation, and I can recognize that. And
Yeah.
so not having follow-up goals after your first one is, I think, one of the biggest reasons you see people fall off in jiu-jitsu.
Dude, and like, and again, I always just attribute it to ego, but like, you feel like you know more than you really do. Like, I can remember being like a blue belt and purple belt, and like going into train, they're like, oh well, we're gonna do arm bars today. Oh shit, like I know how to I know how to do an arm bar. Like, why am I coming to this technique class to learn more arm bars? But it's just like jujitsu is like, it's like this infinite like ocean of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's like this ever evolving puzzle, and it's like the more you look at it, but you see these new problems within the the puzzle, and it's like you find new ways to solve them. You know what I mean? It's like, and when you're coming to class, it's just like there's all this knowledge available, but we're just going to take one drop out of the pool, and we're just going to just focus on this right now. It's like, I understand this can lead to this, and this can lead to this, or what if they do this? That's all possible in a realm of possibilities, but like, we just need to hone in here and just understand there's a lot more here than you really understand. And like, the longer you look at it, you'll start to understand that.
That's good, man. I think that is the perfect place to finish. That was excellent. Thank you so much for being on, Adam.
Dude, Josh, thanks for having me, brother. I really appreciate it, man.
Of course, man. Anything you want to say to finish?
Thanks for having me, all your listeners. You can check me out. I do have a podcast we mentioned earlier, Outside Perspective Podcast. And then also I do have a brand. It's called Imposed Will. It's a lifestyle mindset brand, and we're actually moving more into the jiu-jitsu space with the I Will Roll line. There's going to be more details for that, but you can check us out there at imposedwill.com. So
awesome, man. That's cool to hear. I did not know that you guys are moving more jiu-jitsu-ish.
I mean, that's what I love. So I might as well just attack that sector, and build from there.
I love it, man. I love it. All right. Thank you again for being on.
Right on, Josh. Thanks, brother.
And that is the episode. Be sure to let Adam know if you liked that episode. Check out his podcast too if you enjoyed hearing from him. He's, like I said, he's a cool dude. I know you guys think so too. Just very, it's a hard word to describe him. Just like a very gentle, nice guy. And it's kind of weird that he was a very good MMA fighter and would bash your head in. Not anymore though, because he doesn't fight in MMA anymore. He's a gentle jiu-jitsu soul now. And also, don't forget, you can check out Imposed Will. That is his clothing line that he has, which is, we didn't get too into, but actually really cool looking logo, really cool looking stuff that they have on their site. And I got to talk to him secretly behind the scenes about some new stuff that's going to be coming from Imposed Will. I think it's actually going to be coming from I Will Roll, but can't tell you guys about it because it's super secret. What I can tell you guys about is to check out simplifyingjujitsu.com, and like I said, for the next 2 weeks you can purchase for 40% off. You'll be able to purchase it after the next 2 weeks. It just won't be 40% off, but for 40% off you will be able to purchase the Essentials of Jujitsu Kimura. Be sure to check that out and give me some feedback on it. I would love to hear from you guys. I've done a few other instructionals before. It's not my first one, but I always love to hear feedback. I always love to hear if someone says, hey, I might have gotten more out of it if ... That's always important to me. And now, since it is a website that I have control of my own content on, I am going to be able to add question and answer to that course, which is something I've never been able to do, which is kind of frustrating if you put a lot of time and effort into an instructional and you're like, man, I really want this to be good. And you're like, oh, well, I can't change anything. I can't tweak anything. Well, we can add to this course, which is so cool. So if you guys have any technique questions about the Kimura position that we're going to look at, be sure to let me know so we can add to it. We can make it even better of a product for everybody. And I hope you guys check it out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And most importantly, I hope that you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu.